Hi there, in this video we're going to look at preferences. I know in the last video I said it's going to be exciting stuff. This is exciting. It's nerdy exciting for Premiere Pro. We're going to look at the preferences that are actually worth changing, not just all the preferences. Now most of these are just personal preferences and personal peeves of mine. And to change them all makes the whole experience nicer, for me at least. The first one is in your project window. If you open up a bin, it opens up in a separate tab. Okay, and then you like go back to this one, and you've got this one open, and then it's a big mess down here. So what I prefer to do, I'm going to close these down, is Premiere Pro Preferences General. On a Mac, it's Edit Preferences General. Okay, and I like that when I double click a bin, it just opens in place. Click OK. Okay, it means now when I open up footage, that same panel is updated, and I can go back and into this next one and back. Thank you very much. You might not like that. Next preference. This one here is just super useful and it's not on by default at the moment. Go to back into your preferences, go to auto save and turn this one that says save backup project onto Creative Cloud. I know it's not on at the moment, so just turn that on. These seem to work good. Automatically back it up every 15 minutes. Up until a maximum of 20 versions, that's fine. But also save it to the cloud. Why not? It's useful. Let's click OK. Premiere Pro doesn't crash nearly as much as it used to. You will find them. Okay, let me find it for you. There it is. So here's my Creative Cloud in here under, so I've just logged into creativecloud.adobe.com, my work, and you will find under synced files, Premiere Pro 15, whatever version you're at, auto saves, and it will just back them up in here as well. That there, if things go wrong, you can find your project file. So yours corrupts, so you lose it. It's backed up here as well. Or there'll be 20 versions going backwards. Super useful, especially if somebody else is working on your project and you're just kind of sharing the project file. All right, next preference. For those of you who are using a computer that is not quite up to Premiere Pro's spec and it reminds you of it every time it loads, it says, hey, you don't have the right machine. You're like, I know, and it works good enough, so I ignore it. You can go and turn that off. Okay, preferences, general, and say, stop showing me compatibility issues every time you start up. Once is fine. Don't keep reminding me of my slow Padu laptop. Doesn't fix them, just the warning dialogues. All right, next preference. Now this next one is, I'm not sure if this is on by default anymore. I know it was definitely on by default and it was a pain that I had and a lot of my students had, so it might be off by default. We'll check. So what happens by default is wherever I move my CTI, can you see? It actually selects the clip underneath and changes up here in your fix controls, and I hated that. Okay, what we can do is you can go to sequence and say, actually selection does not follow the playhead. Okay, I've got something selected. My playhead doesn't kind of keep jumping around. It may or may not be on, and you may or may not hate it. You might love it. You may be like, man, I'm going to turn that back on because look, it selects it every time you move. All right, these preferences are personal preferences. All right, next one. All right, don't forget to turn it off. All right, now next one. All right, this next shortcut is for you, those of you like me who use a mouse with a scroll wheel to do your editing, and you end up doing this. Whoop. Everything is up hiding all the time. You're like, oh, how do I get it back? Why can't I see anything? So the scroll wheel by default vertically scrolls up and down the timeline. And if you find that frustrating like I do, go to Premiere Pro, Preferences, remember Edit Preferences on a PC, go to Timeline and say, actually, the timeline mouse scrolling be horizontal. That's way more useful. Let's click OK. And now, I've lost them. You come back down, you there. But now, okay, your scroll wheel goes back and forth. Okay, so I find that helpful. You can do some other things, like you can still go up and down by holding the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC and just hover above the different ones. So you can still disappear them and scrub up and down your timelines. Another little shortcut, if you are a scroll wheel person, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and it zooms in and out using the scroll wheel. Okay, so Command, up and down now, Option to zoom in and out, and the regular old, just using the mouse with nothing, the scroll wheel with nothing held down, will go left and right. Now the question you didn't ask, and probably didn't even think about, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is what mouse is he using? So what is the best mouse for video editing? For me, I use this one. It's not the best mouse. It's the best mouse for me because it's called the Logitech M720. It's called Triathlon, I think. Why? Because I'm just not a full-time video editor. I do as much graphic design as I do web design, as UX design, as teaching. So I need a mouse that can do a bit of it all. And this is a nice, good compromise. It's got some extra programmable buttons, some good scroll wheel functions. You can connect it to different devices like my phone and my iPad, which is crazy cool. And it's not super expensive. If you are a full-time editor, which a lot of you will be, you might want to consider some of the surface controls. Okay, so type in surface controls and see what's out there. Like there is an amazing array of surface controls. Just make sure it's compatible with Premiere Pro. You can see there's some crazy cool things you can kind of set up to get your workflow going. Plus, you look like a serious, legit video editor if you've got something like this on the table. But for me, my desktop service is super valuable. I've got no room for it, and I've tried it before, and it ends up in the drawer of junk that I thought I needed, but I don't. But I know for sure, if I was a full-time editor, I'd try and look like this guy. All right, on to the next preference. This next preference setting, it's less of a preference and like turning off two preferences that are meant to be helpful, but for me, run into too much trouble. The first one is, well, it's snap and set in and out points. There are shortcuts on your keyboard that somehow magically I hit all the time. I never want to use them. You know, I never do it on purpose, but the S key, okay, which is snap, there's the icon version of it there. I always turn it off and it stops snapping and you're like, oh, why aren't you snapping anymore? Why isn't that lining up? And you're like, oh, it's because snap's off. And you're like, where is snap? Know that there's an icon there now, which you probably never looked at before. And you go like, snap, and you turn it off. So I'm going to turn that off as a shortcut. You don't have to, I do. The other one that is, I don't know, I do it all the time by mistake is I've got something selected and I'm looking down to kind of resize my timeline, you know, because I'm zoomed in too far. I want to zoom out. And what I do is I end up setting in and out points because instead of the backslash, which I want, I click the forward slash. And I'm like, oh, not that. I'm like, how do I get rid of that again? And I right click and clear in and out. And then I hit the backslash key to fill the timeline. So I'm going to turn both of those off. Let's go to edit. No, on a Mac, it's under Premiere Pro and under keyboard shortcuts. On a PC, it's under edit, keyboard shortcuts. Okay, I'm going to disable a couple of them. So I want to find snap. Okay, I just typed it in there. I want to say you are gone. So when I hit S now, it's not going to do anything. And the other one is I want to set in and out points. Where is it? Scroll, 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 scroll. Nope, it's not called set in and out points. Wait there. All right, you're back. It's called mark selection. Good preparation, Dan. This one here, goodbye. You might love those. Leave them in there. But know that if there are ones in there, you can turn them off. And the cool thing about setting these preferences and keyboard shortcuts is that because Premiere Pro is this like subscription service and there's all this cloud stuff under like preferences and under sync settings, it will sync your keyboard shortcuts changes and your workspaces and the preferences so that when you get a new computer or format it or change to another computer or start working, you know, internally at some other company, you can log in with your username and ID and it will bring them all across and you can continue your amazing flow. One of the nice things about Premiere Pro and like that creative cloudy thing. All right, for this next trick, we are going to look at the timeline and the way this thing snaps. By default, it doesn't snap to anything, okay? Now you can hold down the shift key, okay? And it will, while you're dragging your CTI, snap to everything. So that's a handy shortcut, okay? But I like it on by default, okay? So you can go to Premiere Pro, Preferences, remember PC, it's Edit Preferences, go to Timeline, and go to the one that says, this one. They all look the same and they're moving around. So you might have to look for it, snap playhead. So it's just gonna have it on by default, only when snap is enabled. So you can turn it off by just clicking this, not the S key, we just binned that one, but it means that they're gonna snap to this. I find it's more useful for my flow. Try it for a little while, you might hate it. You can turn it off if you wanna be a bit more exact, holding the shift key down. That's what I do. There's a lot of like getting it to the right point and then using the razor tool or some of the other shortcuts. Okay, and by default, it just snaps. It's up to you. Now I'm gonna cover a few shortcuts in this course, actually loads of them. It's the advanced course. What I'll do is I will produce a shortcut sheet that you can print out. It'll be in your exercise files, okay? Obviously, hopefully in there. It doesn't exist yet because I'm still making the course, but it'll be in there in your exercise files. You can print them off. You should write them down, but print them off now, and you can kind of circle the ones that you think are great. All right, let's get on to the next video.